Hello snowboarders of the internet, I'm your host Avran LeFeber, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the Nitro Phantom binding. Yeah, binding, gotta be clear about that. So I rode this at Copper Mountain on an overcast gray day that was lumpy snow, choppy snow, chundery snow, ice, kind of just a mix of crappy conditions, and I rode it on my Telos Mike Rankwit snowboard with my K2 Thraxis boots. Alright, so let's talk about the adjustability on this. The heel cup is fully adjustable. You have 4 screws, 2 at the front, 2 in the back. You loosen them up, you can slide the heel cup forward or backwards. Then to go along with that, you have the toe ramp where you can slide that forward or backwards as well. There is a little bit of a groove track on the high back, so if you need to rotate it a little bit, you can do that. You got your forward lean adjustment. Then you got your flip cams, which are some of the easiest I've ever seen on a binding, just to lengthen or shorten it. And finally, on the toe strap, you've got a pin system, so you can go a little more forward or a little more backwards depending on where you need to center your boot on the binding. With the toe strap, you've got the Uber Grip toe strap on there, which is Vibram. This provides ultimate grip, so there's no slip. And when you get to the heel strap, this is where it gets a little more old school. You've got a sewn strap with multiple levels of material in there. This will break down and stretch over time. Be aware of that. This can also create pinch points. Basically, it is a narrower cutout. You are going to notice that you have a little more give inside the instep, whereas it's a little more rigid on the outside, just because it's a little thicker and wider in there. Like I said, it's an old school strap. You're going to probably feel pinch points if you've used a new age strap. If you're used to stuff like this, you're fine. Alright, so when it comes to the ratchets, it's a little bit wider on the heel strap, so it was a little easier to feed this in. On the toe strap, it's a little narrower. That created some fumbling initially. Once the day went on, they started to break in. I didn't have any problems. The one finger quick release works how you would expect it to work. There's no issues with that. They climb well. Overall, it is a metal buckle, so you do feel like it's a little more sturdy on this one compared to other models from Nitro. At the end of the day, they did their job. They did their job well. All right, time to talk about the high back, which could possibly be the tallest high back in the world. It measures over 8 inches high from the top of the heel cup. That's ridiculous. These things actually sat above the cuff of my boot. So for power transmission, yeah, you're gonna get a lot when you roll onto the heel on your board. You're just gonna be able to push right into it because it goes all the way up. It is a little more rigid in there, and the forward lean adjustment, you just pop the tab, slide it down, slide it up, it locks into where you need it to be. Overall, it's a high back, but what you do notice is how aggressively tall it is and how that actually feels when you're riding on it. So this is actually a stiffer binding, and what you're going to notice with it is how much power it truthfully has going toe to heel or laterally, even with that mini disc in there. This is just a binding that puts a lot of power down into the board. Sure, you do have that cutout in the heel strap, so it does give a little bit more when you forward flex into it, driving down into your toes or coming back up on the heel. But overall, this binding just has a ton of power into it. It's a little more rigid. You notice that, especially with that metal heel cup, you can really just put a lot of torque into it. Overall, I'd say it's past middle of the road on the all-mountain freeride spectrum. Now, the ride of this binding is super damp. You've got that air ride dampening system in there, and it just dissipates so much energy and so much vibration, so that when you're really charging, it feels really smooth right underfoot, but it's not going to sacrifice the liveliness of the board any with it. You do have a mini disc, which does dissipate the amount of a dead spot underfoot. Overall, it's a damp binding. Who's this binding for? The old school hard carving, damp ride wanting, plush strap needing rider. Someone that's just a little more old school. All right, so we just need to talk about that high back. I mean, how is that thing so high? Talk about just being overly huge. It doesn't need to be that way. This is a powerful binding. You do get a lot of power out of it. 5-6 years ago, this probably would have been a really high-end binding. These days, it's dated with that heel strap. You notice that right away, that it should have one of those injection molded straps with it. I mean, it gets the job done. It just has an older feel. You You can notice that there's a little bit of bunching, that they do get wet in slushy or snow, and that tends to stick in there, that moisture. It can freeze up, whatnot. At the end of the day, they got the job done. It's just that high back was so damn aggressive. I don't even know how I rode a set of these like 10 years ago, but I did. I assume the high back was lower back then, or maybe my boot cuff was higher. I don't know, but yeah, that was aggressive. It's a carving binding for sure. Comparable bindings: the Jones Apollo, the Bent Metal Solution, the Ride A9. This has been my review of the Nitro Phantom binding. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you own a pair? Are you going to buy a pair? Leave me a comment down below. Let's have a conversation about this binding. If you're new here, remember to subscribe, click the bell, get those notifications. That way you're not missing any of the videos we got coming out for all you snowboarders of the internet. And if you really like what we're doing over here and you want to support us further, swing on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP and become a member. Sure, I could tell you more here, but I got a video over there that explains it so much better. As always, I've been your host, Avran LeFeber, and I'll see you in another video.